Donald Trump is back in the spotlight, and so are his tariffs. Wielding them like a hammer in a china shop, he's swinging at allies, rivals and trade partners alike. This time it's not just China or Europe in his crosshairs, it's Brazil. As Trump reintroduces sweeping tariffs, many nations are scrambling, some conceding, others negotiating. But one country is standing its ground without flinching: Brazil. President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva isn't playing ball. He's not bowing, not bargaining, and certainly not staying silent. Instead, he's calling out Trump directly and boldly. "We don't want an emperor," Lula declared. "Our countries are sovereign. If Trump imposes tariffs, other countries have the right to do the same." He went further, criticizing the way Trump handles diplomacy, especially his reliance on social media to announce global economic policies. There is the law of reciprocity. It's irresponsible for the president of a country like the United States to threaten the world with tariffs via Twitter. There are proper forums for this. Then came the most biting remarks. Lula labeled Trump an emperor, accusing him of trying to rule the world. He also used a culturally loaded term, calling Trump a gringo, a Brazilian term for a foreigner, often used to assert national pride. "A gringo is not going to give orders to this president of the republic," Lula said defiantly. So where did this diplomatic showdown begin? Like many of Trump's recent disputes, it started with a letter, specifically a new tariff announcement. Last week, Trump slapped a 50% tariff on Brazilian goods. The official explanation? Alleged unfair trade practices and anti-American bias. But behind the scenes, it appears this move is about more than trade. At the center of the controversy is former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, Trump's ideological ally. Both men are known for their nationalist rhetoric, skepticism about climate change, and downplaying of the COVID-19 pandemic. Bolsonaro frequently visited Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate, echoing his American counterpart's talking points. He was even dubbed the Trump of the tropics. But now Bolsonaro faces serious charges in Brazil. He's accused of orchestrating a coup attempt, and that trial is unfolding right now. Brazil's top prosecutor claims Bolsonaro tried to incite an insurrection. Bolsonaro calls it a witch hunt, a phrase that sounds all too familiar. Unsurprisingly, Trump agrees, recently calling Bolsonaro a hero and a victim of an unjust system. It's clear Trump views Bolsonaro's legal troubles through the same lens he uses to describe his own. So this tariff war is personal, not just political. And it doesn't end with Bolsonaro. There are deeper tensions. Brazil is a core member of BRICS, a coalition of emerging economies that Trump has openly criticized. He's accused the BRICS nations of pursuing anti-Western priorities and warned them to pick a side. For Trump, BRICS represents a direct challenge to American dominance in global affairs. Then there's tech. President Lula has taken a tough stance on digital giants like Google and Meta, accusing them of spreading disinformation. Brazil is now pushing for tighter regulations on foreign tech companies. The US government, under pressure from Trump-aligned interests, has launched an investigation, claiming Brazil is engaging in unfair trade practices. But Lula isn't backing down. The defense of sovereignty also applies to foreign digital platforms, Lula said. In Brazil, all companies, domestic or foreign, must comply with our laws. Here's the irony. The US actually enjoys a trade surplus with Brazil. In 2024, American exports to Brazil outpaced imports, with key products like aircraft, machinery, and electronics dominating the trade. If Brazil retaliates, US industries could feel the sting. But economic fallout hasn't stopped Trump before. So where does all this lead? Interestingly, Lula says he's still open to talks, but only respectful ones. We held over 10 meetings with the US government. On May 16th, we sent them a proposal for negotiation. What we got instead was blackmail, threats, and misinformation. For now, Trump continues lobbing tariffs like he's back hosting The Apprentice. But Lula? He's not playing contestant. He's playing for sovereignty and signaling to the world that Brazil won't be bullied. But the bigger question remains, can the global South push back against the dominance of Western powers, or will it be punished for standing up? This isn't just about two presidents. It's about the shape of a new world order, and who gets to call the shots. Brazil is drawing a clear line in the sand, accusing major US tech companies of spreading fake news and undermining its sovereignty. President Lula believes big tech needs to be regulated, not just domestically, but internationally. From his standpoint, these companies should respect national laws wherever they operate, including in Brazil. But on the other side of the hemisphere, Donald Trump sees Brazil's actions as nothing short of censorship. Tensions escalated further on Tuesday when the United States launched an investigation into Brazil, citing unfair trade practices. It's a move clearly influenced by Trump's hardline stance on trade, but Lula isn't backing down. The defense of sovereignty also applies to foreign digital platforms, he stated. In Brazil, all companies, national and foreign, must follow our laws if they wish to operate here. What makes the situation even more complex is the economic relationship between the two nations. Ironically, the US runs a trade surplus with Brazil. In 2024 alone, American exports to Brazil, mainly aircraft, electrical systems and industrial machinery, outpaced imports. That means if Brazil decides to retaliate, it won't be symbolic. Any tariffs imposed on US goods could deal a real economic blow, particularly to American manufacturers. Still, economic logic hasn't always dictated Trump's decisions. Despite warnings of self-inflicted harm, his administration has rarely hesitated to wield tariffs as a weapon. So, what's the current status of this growing spat? Lula insists he remains open to negotiations. He points to more than 10 meetings held with US officials and a formal proposal for talks that Brazil submitted on May 16th. However, instead of constructive engagement, Lula claims Brazil was met with threats and misinformation. What we received, he said, was unacceptable blackmail, threats to Brazilian institutions and false narratives about our trade relations. Interestingly, this conflict is doing little to hurt Lula's political standing. In fact, his approval ratings have ticked up, from 40% in May to 43% this month. Standing up to Washington appears to be playing well domestically. Brazilians see their president pushing back against foreign pressure, which resonates strongly in a country historically wary of US interference. Trump, meanwhile, continues to treat international disputes like boardroom showdowns, rhetoric-heavy, unpredictable, and headline-driven. But this isn't a reality show, and Lula isn't here to audition. This clash between the two leaders represents something larger than personal egos or bilateral disagreements. At its core, it's about the shifting dynamics of global power. Can countries from the global south, like Brazil, assert their independence in a world still dominated by US influence? Or will they be punished for dissent? Lula sees a bully at his border. And for now, he's not backing down. But the broader questions remain unanswered. Will this turn into a full-blown economic standoff? Will diplomacy prevail? Or will the politics of pride and populism drive yet another wedge in international relations? One thing is clear, this is no ordinary trade dispute. It's a battle over sovereignty, power, and the rules of the global digital age.